town of Silent Shadows lived up to its name. It was a place where secrets whispered on the wind and shadows danced in the moonlight. The old houses, with their peeling paint and overgrown gardens, watched silently. They were like old men, their faces etched with stories they could no longer tell. At the edge of town, shrouded in an almost tangible silence, stood the Miller House. The house was a monolith of decay, a testament to forgotten times. Its windows, like vacant eyes, stared out blindly. The paint peeled from its walls like scabs from old wounds. The garden was a tangle of thorns and weeds, a testament to nature's relentless claim. Locals whispered tales of the family that had vanished within its walls, their laughter swallowed by the silence. They said the house breathed, a slow, heavy inhalation and exhalation that spoke of something sinister lurking within. The Miller House was a place of nightmares, a place where fear was a tangible thing. It was a place to avoid, a place to forget. But for some, the allure of the unknown was too strong to resist. The group of friends stood at the edge of the overgrown lawn, their faces illuminated by the pale moonlight. There was Liam, the self-proclaimed leader, his jaw set in determination. Next to him stood Emily, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. And then there was Daniel, the quiet one, his gaze fixed on the imposing house. They had made a pact, a childish dare fueled by teenage bravado, to spend the night in the Miller House. "Ready?" Liam asked, his voice barely a whisper in the stillness. Emily nodded, her fingers nervously twisting a lock of hair. Daniel just stared at the house, his silence speaking volumes. The old house seemed to watch them, a predator sizing up its prey. A shiver ran down Emily's spine, and she unconsciously moved closer to Liam. He put a reassuring arm around her, his gaze never leaving the house. "Let's do this," Liam said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his heart. He took a deep breath and started towards the house, Emily and Daniel trailing behind him like shadows. As they approached, the house seemed to loom larger, more menacing. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of their own breathing and the frantic beating of their hearts. The front door creaked open with a groan, like a mouth opening in a silent scream. The smell that hit them was overpowering. Dust, mildew, and something else. Something cold and unpleasant that sent shivers down their spines. Liam fumbled for his flashlight and shone it into the darkness. The beam of light cut through the gloom, revealing a scene of utter desolation. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like macabre decorations. Dust lay thick on the floor, undisturbed for years. The air was heavy, oppressive, making it hard to breathe. Liam took a tentative step inside, the floorboards groaning under his weight. Emily and Daniel followed, their eyes wide with apprehension. The house felt alive, its silence pregnant with unseen menace. They moved deeper into the house, each room a mirror image of the last. Decay, dust, and an unsettling silence that seemed to press in on them from all sides. The shadows seemed to dance in the flickering beam of Liam's flashlight, taking on strange and sinister shapes. The silence was broken only by the sound of their own footsteps and the beating of their hearts, loud in their ears. They had crossed the threshold into the unknown, and there was no turning back. They entered a room at the end of the hall. It was different. This room was colder than the others, the air thick with a palpable sense of dread. A large, ornate mirror hung on the wall, its surface clouded with dust. Liam ran his fingers over the cold glass, leaving a clean streak in the grime. As he did, he could have sworn he saw a figure move in the reflection. A fleeting shadow that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. He turned, his heart pounding, but there was nothing there. "Did you see that?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Liam shook his head, trying to convince himself that he had imagined it. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. On a small table beneath the mirror lay a photo, its edges curled and yellowed with age. The picture showed a family. A man, a woman, and a young girl, all dressed in clothes that spoke of a bygone era. Their faces were grim, their eyes holding a haunted look that sent shivers down their spines. As Emily reached out to touch the photo, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing Liam's flashlight and plunging them into darkness. A collective gasp escaped their lips, the sound loud in the sudden silence. Then, from the darkness, came a whisper, soft but distinct. "Get out." Panic surged through Liam as he fumbled for his flashlight. He clicked it on, but the beam was weak, flickering erratically. The battery was dying. He glanced at Emily and Daniel, their faces pale in the dim light. They had to get out of there, and fast. But as they turned to leave, they found the door had slammed shut. Liam rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked, or jammed or something. He threw his weight against the door, but it wouldn't give. "Help me!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the silence. Emily and Daniel joined in, their voices high with panic, but it was no use. The door wouldn't move. They were trapped. The air seemed to grow colder, the silence more oppressive. Liam could feel his own fear rising, threatening to overwhelm him. He had to stay calm, for Emily and Daniel's sake, if not for his own. But deep down, he knew. They weren't alone in the house. The shadows seemed to be closing in, the darkness pressing down on them like a physical weight. The whispers started again, soft and indistinct, seeming to come from the very walls themselves. They were trapped with something sinister, something that wanted them there. Liam's blood ran cold. In the mirror, the shadowy figure was back. This time, it was clearer, more defined. It was a tall, gaunt figure, dressed in what looked like a long coat. Its face was hidden in the shadows, but Liam could feel its eyes on them, cold and malevolent. He wanted to scream, to warn Emily and Daniel, but terror choked the words in his throat. The mirror, which had been merely dusty before, was now covered in a network of fine cracks, as if something was trying to break through. The figure in the mirror raised its hand, its long, bony fingers reaching towards them. A low growl echoed through the room, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The temperature plummeted, and a wave of icy fear washed over them. Liam knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that they were in mortal danger. This was no game, no childish dare gone wrong. This was real, and it was happening. The figure in the mirror lunged forward, and the mirror shattered with a deafening crash, sending shards of glass flying through the air like daggers. Liam screamed, shielding Emily and Daniel with his body. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, and then everything went black. The next morning, the sun rose over silent shadows, casting its golden light over the town. But there was no joy in its warmth, no cheer in its brilliance, for the town held its breath, united in a silent grief that hung over it like a shroud. The Miller house stood silent, its windows like blank eyes staring out at the town. The front door hung open, a gaping maw that had swallowed 3 young lives. The townsfolk gathered at the edge of the property, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. They had searched, of course, but it was no use. Liam, Emily, and Daniel had vanished without a trace. The police were baffled. There was no sign of a struggle, no indication of what had happened. One minute they were there, the next they were gone. Vanished. The house held its secrets close, refusing to relinquish its grip on the 3 souls it had claimed. Whispers started, spreading like wildfire through the town. Whispers of the Miller house, of the family that had vanished within its walls, of the darkness that lurked within its heart. The house was a hungry beast, they said, and it had been fed. And now it waited, patiently, for its next victims. The disappearance of the 3 friends cast a long shadow over silent shadows. The once vibrant town was now shrouded in sadness. The Miller house, a symbol of tragedy, reminded everyone of life's fragility. The town learned its lesson the hard way. Some secrets are best left buried. The Miller House still stands today, a silent sentinel. Its windows are still dark, its secrets still hidden. On quiet nights, you can still hear faint echoes of laughter and desperate cries. The Miller House is a stark reminder that curiosity can come at a terrible price.